All right, today we're going to tackle a verb that every single Italian learner knows, but let's be honest, few truly master. Mettere. You probably think it just means to put, but it's actually the Swiss Army knife of Italian verbs, just packed with all these hidden meanings. So let's dive in and unlock them together. Right, you've definitely used it to say you're putting something on a table, but have you ever stopped to wonder how it's also used for getting dressed, or for starting an activity, or even to describe a situation that's going really, really badly? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. So here's our game plan. We'll start with why mettere is kind of the verb that means everything, starting with the basics, to put. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, the mini forms of mettere, solve that tricky past tense puzzle, and finally, we'll leave you with one key phrase you can start using today. Okay, first things first, let's get on solid ground, right? We're going to start with the meaning of mettere that you're probably already super familiar with. So at its absolute core, mettere literally means to put or to place. It's simple, it's straightforward, no surprises here. This is the foundation that we're going to build everything else on. The basic present tense should look pretty familiar. Io metto, tu metti, lui lei mette. So you can easily say something like Io metto I libri sul tavolo. I put the books on the table. Easy enough, right? Okay, with that foundation set, let's move on to where this verb gets really, really interesting. Okay, this is where we totally level up. We're about to see how Italians use this one verb in all these different contexts and real-life sentences that go way, way beyond just putting things somewhere. First up, let's talk about clothes. You know, when you're thinking about mettere, you should also be thinking about getting dressed. It's a huge one. For instance, you wouldn't use some other verb to say you're putting on your jacket. You just say, mi metto la giacca. Now, the really key part of the sentence is that little word right at the beginning, mi. And that brings us to a super important point. When you're talking about putting clothes on yourself, mettere becomes reflexive. It becomes mettersi. That little C is the key, so it's mi metto, ti metti, and so on. And this idea of putting yourself into something, it doesn't stop with clothes. Mettere can also signal the very beginning of an action. Check out this example. Si è messo a studiare literally means he put himself to studying. It's just the natural Italian way of saying that's when he started doing it. And this is the perfect little formula to remember. Mettersi a plus an infinitive verb you know, like studiare, cucinare, leggere. It means to start doing that thing. You will hear this all the time in everyday conversation. It's so common. Now, for something a little more subtle, mettere can also be used to describe causing an emotional state or a reaction in someone else. So you could say, something mi mette a disagio, which means it's making me feel uncomfortable. Or that's some bad news. Mi ha messo ansia. It gave me anxiety. In these phrases, mettere is like the action of imposing a feeling onto somebody. And speaking of situations, look at this. You can use mettersi to talk about how things are going, how they're evolving. So if people are arguing, you might say, si mette male, meaning, oh boy, this is going to turn out badly. But on the flip side, if your plans are working out, you can say, si mette bene, things are looking good. All right, we've covered all these different forms. Now it's time to face the final boss of mettere, choosing the right auxiliary verb in the past tense. This is the one that trips up so many learners. When you're making the passato prossimo, do you use avere or do you use essere? It feels really tricky, but I promise there's a very clear rule. Okay, this little table here breaks it all down perfectly. The rule of thumb is this. If mettere has a direct object, if you're putting something somewhere, you use avere. But the moment it becomes reflexive, like when you're putting on clothes or starting an action, the auxiliary verb switches right over to essere. That's the secret. And here's that rule in action. Mi sono messa il cappotto. Because it's reflexive, I put the coat on myself, we have to use essere. And hey, notice how the ending of messa agrees because the speaker is female. If Mario said it, it would be messo. Whew. Okay, we have covered a lot. So if you were going to focus on mastering just one of these forms to start, which one should it be? Let's get really practical here. There is one form that is used constantly, I mean all the time in daily Italian life. Mastering this one will give you the biggest bang for your buck, and it'll make you sound so much more natural. So what's the big takeaway? You should really focus on practicing mettersi, a plus an infinitive. Mi metto a studiare, mi metto a cucinare. It's just an incredibly common and useful way to say you're about to begin something. Start using this one, and I guarantee you'll start seeing it everywhere. So now you've seen how mettere is so much more than just to put. It's about action, it's about emotion, and it's about change. So the only question left is, what will you start doing with all this new knowledge? Thanks for tuning in.
Grazie for watching. Hit subscribe and keep learning Italian the smart way totally, right here on Italianissimo. A presto, ciao!